I never should have opened David's message that night. The screen lit up in the dark bedroom, the glow cold against my face. "Bro, you need to see this." That was all it said, followed by a screenshot. My heart didn't even hesitate, it knew something inside that my mind refused to believe. It was the company's private executive group chat. My wife's inner circle, the top brass who worshipped her brilliance and fed off her approval. And there she was, her name highlighted, her words so sharp I felt them cut across my chest. "Ethan's basically dead weight. He means well, but he's not built for this world. Sometimes I think keeping him close is my biggest liability." I blinked once. Twice. My throat dried up as if the air had been vacuumed from the room. My wife. The woman I sacrificed years for, the woman who once whispered on our wedding night that everything we build together. She was laughing with her executives about me. My pulse hammered against my skull. I scrolled lower. Someone had typed back, "Maybe it's time to let him fade out. You don't need him holding you down." And her reply, 3 words, a dagger, exactly my thought. For a long moment, I just sat there, staring at the screen, the silence of our penthouse apartment mocking me. The city outside roared with late-night traffic, but in here? Just me, the truth, and the sound of my heart breaking. I wanted to laugh, to scream, to smash the phone against the wall. Instead, I set it down slowly on the nightstand, as if handling an explosive. My hands trembled. Dead weight. That was all I was to her. After everything. I remembered the first pitch meeting, back when we were still nobodies clawing our way through internships. I was the one who stood by her side when no one would listen. I was the one who emptied my savings so she could quit her job and take the risk of starting a company. She used to call me her anchor. Now, I was an anchor in the other sense, a chain around her neck. I felt sick. I replayed years in fast forward, late nights bringing her coffee while she drafted contracts, smiling at gala events while she stood center stage, clapping the loudest when she was named CEO of the year. Always behind her. Always in the shadows. I thought it was a partnership. She thought it was pathetic. The door clicked. I looked up, startled, as she walked into the room, heels in hand, silk dress shimmering from the dinner she'd just hosted with investors. Her perfume hit me, sharp, intoxicating, familiar, and for the first time, it smelled like poison. She noticed me sitting upright in bed, phone still glowing. "Ethan?" she asked, her voice calm, too calm. "Why are you awake?" My mouth opened, but words stumbled. My tongue felt heavy. "Say it," I told myself. "Say it now." I held up the phone. Her eyes flicked to the screen. And in that instant, barely a heartbeat, her expression didn't change. No flinch. No panic. Just stillness. As though she had already prepared for this moment. "Where did you get that?" she asked. Smooth. Icy. Like she was asking why the champagne stock was low. "It doesn't matter where I got it." My voice cracked, fury and disbelief tangling. "You called me dead weight. In front of them. In front of your board. Was this what you always thought of me?" The silence stretched between us, thicker than concrete. She set her heels down neatly by the dresser, then crossed the room with deliberate grace. Her reflection flickered in the glass windows behind her, tall skyscrapers glowing around her like a crown. "Ethan," she said finally, "you shouldn't take everything so literally." My stomach dropped. I wanted her to laugh nervously, to say it was a joke, a misunderstanding, anything that could stitch together the pieces of my faith. But instead, she tilted her chin, voice steady, flawless, unashamed. And the worst part? She didn't even deny it. The words clung to me like tar. Dead weight. I lay awake long after she slipped into bed beside me, her breathing slow, even, careless. I wondered how she could fall asleep so easily while my world was collapsing inches away. Maybe that was her gift, compartmentalization. A life of masks. Every time I closed my eyes, memories ambushed me. At first, they were warm, her hand clutching mine during those early years, when our apartment smelled of burnt takeout and ambition. The nights she swore we'd rise together, even if we had to crawl. Her head resting on my shoulder as she whispered, "We'll build our kingdom, Ethan. Just you and me against the world." But now, those same memories twisted like shards of glass. When she clutched my hand, was it really for love, or leverage? When she whispered about our kingdom, had the "our" been a temporary illusion, a carrot dangling just long enough to keep me running? I remembered the night of her first big investor dinner. She'd worn that crimson dress, the one that made every head turn. I was proud just to stand next to her, invisible though I felt. She squeezed my arm before walking into the restaurant and whispered, "Smile, Ethan. You're my secret weapon." Back then, I blushed, thinking it meant she valued me. Now, replaying it, I wondered, was I really her weapon, or just a prop? By dawn, I still hadn't closed my eyes. The sun bled into the room, painting our walls gold, walls I suddenly realized I hadn't chosen, hadn't painted, hadn't even cared for. This wasn't my home. It was her stage. I was just in the background. When she stirred, stretching like a cat, she glanced at me through half-lidded eyes. "You look awful," she murmured, slipping into her robe. "Did you even sleep?" I stared at her. For the first time in years, I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger. "Do you mean what you said?" I asked quietly. She paused at the vanity, applying lipstick with surgical precision. Not a flicker of shame in her reflection. "Ethan, don't be dramatic. People say things in business they don't mean." "You called me dead weight," I said, each word cutting my tongue. "You said keeping me close was your biggest liability. That doesn't sound like business. That sounds like the truth." Her eyes met mine in the mirror, cool, steady, unblinking. "If you want to survive in my world, you'll have to stop being so sensitive." Something inside me splintered. I didn't shout. I didn't throw anything. Instead, I laughed. Bitter, hollow, sensitive. That was her diagnosis for the man who had sacrificed everything so she could climb higher. When she left for the office, her perfume lingered. I sat at the dining table, staring at the untouched breakfast I'd made on autopilot. For years, I thought my dream was hers. We'd talked about legacy, but when I spoke, I meant something different. I meant building a life worth remembering, not a company, not an empire, but something human. A name that meant integrity, love, partnership. She, on the other hand, only ever meant power. She wanted skyscrapers with her initials carved into them, headlines screaming her brilliance. Followers worship her curated perfection. And me? I had been the invisible scaffolding holding her stage aloft, useful until it was time for demolition. The hours crawled. My phone buzzed relentlessly with news alerts, business updates, board gossip. But one notification froze me. A photo. Sent from David. "Bro, tell me this isn't what it looks like." I opened it. The gala from last night. My wife at the center, sparkling, untouchable. But beside her, leaning close enough to whisper in her ear, was a man I didn't recognize. Sharp suit, confident smirk, his hand brushing her arm with the casual intimacy of someone who'd done it before. His eyes weren't on the cameras. They were on her. And her smile, God, her smile, wasn't the one she gave to investors. It was smaller, softer, real. I scrolled down. A caption someone had posted, "The real power couple." The room tilted. My chest tightened. For a moment, I thought I might vomit. "Who is he?" I whispered to the empty room. But deep down, I already knew. This wasn't random. This wasn't a coincidence. This man wasn't just leaning in for a laugh. He was a shadow in her orbit, a presence I'd never noticed but had always been there, waiting. The rival had finally stepped into the light. The invitation arrived like a verdict. Executive strategy dinner, attendance mandatory. Mandatory. That was the word that kept echoing in my head as I stood in front of the mirror that night, adjusting a tie I hadn't wanted to wear. It wasn't an invitation, not really. It was a reminder, this was her world, and I was expected to orbit it, whether I liked it or not. The venue was a glass-walled restaurant at the top of one of the city's tallest towers. As the elevator doors opened, laughter spilled out. The kind of polished, performative laughter that comes from people who've spent too long sharpening their teeth. I walked in at her side, but it didn't feel like it was with her. It felt like it was behind her. Always behind. She glided forward, every head turning, her presence magnetic. My presence, tolerated. That was when I saw him. Seated near the head of the long table, laughing with the CFO as though he'd been part of this circle for years. The same man from the photo David had sent me. Crisp navy suit, glass of wine in hand, posture loose with the arrogance of someone who belonged everywhere he stepped. His eyes lifted, and for the briefest second, they locked onto mine. Not a flicker of recognition, no awkwardness, no guilt. Just that same smirk. Dinner was a blur of silverware and scripted pleasantries. Courses arrived, speeches were made, and I sat there, surrounded by people who spoke a language I once believed I could learn. Numbers. Projections. Expansion. Everything about dominance, nothing about meaning. He spoke easily, confidently, sliding in comments that made the board laugh, nod, listen. He wasn't just a guest, he was an influence. I watched as she leaned slightly toward him when he spoke, her hand brushing his sleeve once, maybe twice. Subtle, but enough. Too much. And me? I sat at the edge of the table, an afterthought. I realized then how invisible I'd been for years, even when she introduced me. This is Ethan, my husband. Not a partner. Not co-founder. Just a husband. A footnote in her empire. At one point, the CFO cracked a joke, we all know who the real power couple is. The table erupted in laughter. Some glanced at her. Some at him. None at all. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The word stung worse than the chat screenshot had. This wasn't private ridicule anymore. This was public erasure. I studied his expression. Not arrogance, not entirely. More like a man who had found a gap in the armor and was pressing his fingers in, slow and deliberate. I tried to focus on breathing. On the glass of water in front of me. On anything but the roaring in my ears. Dessert came and went. The city lights below twinkled like galaxies, mocking me with their endless distance. I thought about my dream, not her empire, not the empire she had convinced me was ours, but my real dream. To build something that carried my name, my soul. Not wealth, not power. Legacy. Something I could stand behind without shame. I realized, sitting at that table, I'd already lost years to her ambition. Years of myself, poured into her rise while my own voice went silent. And as if sensing that crack in me, he made his move. The dinner ended with applause for her, toasts for her vision. People rose, shook hands, and gathered their coats. I lingered, half hoping to slip out unnoticed. But he noticed. He stepped close, his cologne sharp, his smile surgical. From a distance, anyone would have thought it a friendly exchange. His hand even brushed my shoulder like an old acquaintance. Ethan, he said softly, his voice carrying only for me. I've heard so much about you. I stiffened. Funny. I haven't heard a thing about you until recently. His smile widened, though his eyes stayed cold. He leaned in, so close I could feel his breath against my ear. You were never part of her plan. The gala was a cathedral of glass and excess. Chandeliers dripped like molten stars from the ceiling, their light scattering across gowns worth more than my yearly salary before she became CEO. Waiters in black carried trays of champagne, and a string quartet played music no one was actually listening to. But all eyes, as always, were on her. My wife walked in like she owned the air itself. Every head turned, every camera flash chased her silhouette. She shimmered in silver, her gown hugging her like armor, her smile calculated for maximum envy. And beside her, of course, was him. The rival. He didn't cling. He didn't need to. His confidence was quieter, sharper, as if he knew everyone in the room had already accepted his presence. He leaned close when she spoke, his hand at her back when the crowd pressed too tightly, and she let him. No hesitation. No guilt. Just the choreography of two people far too comfortable with each other. And me? Trailing behind like a ghost. I tried to breathe through it. Tried to remind myself this was how the corporate world worked, alliances, appearances, networking. But when she laughed at something he whispered, her head tilting toward him in a way I used to think was reserved for me, the ground tilted. Every sound blurred. Glasses clinked, conversations hummed, but all I could hear were the echoes of her words from that chat, dead weight. She had no problem parading me when it was convenient. A ring on her finger, a husband in the corner, proof she had it all. But tonight, watching her move through the room with him, I understood something brutal. I wasn't even an accessory anymore. I was cluttered. At the center of the gala, she raised a glass for a toast. Her voice rang out, smooth and commanding. To vision, to growth, to the future. Applause followed, echoing like worship in a church. But as the room clapped, I did something I hadn't done in years. Something reckless, raw, instinctive. I pulled out my phone. I opened her profile. And in the middle of that glittering room, with investors, board members, and rivals all around, I hit the block. The action was silent, invisible to most. But not to her. Not to the woman who lived through screens, whose image was her empire. Her eyes flicked toward me across the crowd, her smile never faltering, but I saw it, the flicker, the crack. For the first time, she looked unsettled. I turned away, slipping through the crowd, heart pounding in my chest. People noticed. I heard whispers. Did he just walk out? Something's off. Isn't that her husband? For years I'd played the loyal shadow, the quiet arm candy. Tonight, I broke the script. By the time I reached the edge of the room, I could feel his gaze on me, the rival, leaning lazily against the bar, smirk tugging at his lips as if he'd been waiting for me to finally fracture. He didn't move to stop me. He didn't need to. Watching me unravel was entertainment enough. I made it to the balcony. The city sprawled below, cold and infinite, lights blinking like indifferent stars. I gripped the railing until my knuckles whitened, trying to steady the storm inside me. For a moment, I felt almost free. The air was sharp in my lungs, unfiltered by her presence. For the first time, I wasn't hiding behind her glow. But then she arrived. The click of her heels behind me, the perfume I could never escape. She stepped onto the balcony, a smile fixed perfectly for anyone watching through the glass doors behind us. "Really, Ethan?" she murmured, her voice a blade wrapped in velvet. "Blocking me? Walking out? In front of them?" I didn't answer. My silence was the loudest thing I'd ever given her. She leaned in close, her face still radiant, her eyes glacial. To anyone glancing out, it looked like a tender moment between husband and wife. But her whisper cut through me. "Do you really want a war?" Whispers move faster than truth. By the time I arrived at the next board luncheon, I felt their eyes before I heard their words. Polished executives in tailored suits leaned close to each other, voices lowered but not low enough. That scene at the gala looked like he stormed off. Not a good look, especially for her. My stomach turned, but I forced my shoulders back, pretending I couldn't hear them. Pretending I wasn't already choking on their judgment. And then, there he was again. The rival. Seated at the head of the table as though he had every right to be there. Relaxed, smiling, commanding the room with anecdotes and easy charisma. He caught sight of me and grinned like we were old friends. I sat down across from him, every muscle tight. My wife glided in moments later, flawless as ever, her presence immediately shifting the energy. Cameras of attention swiveled toward her like sunflowers to light. The meeting began, discussions of strategy, acquisitions, expansion. I tried to focus on the spreadsheets in front of me, but the rival's voice cut through everything. Smooth, deliberate, designed to sting. "Of course, leadership requires composure," he was saying. "The ability to keep personal matters from clouding judgment. Not everyone can manage that. Some people, well, insecurity gets the better of them." Laughter. Nods. Agreement. My jaw clenched. I knew what he was doing, twisting the knife, framing my moment of defiance as weakness. A husband's petty tantrum. I couldn't stop myself. "If you have something to say about me," I said, my voice sharper than I intended, "say it directly." The room went still. Dozens of eyes turned toward us. He smiled, slow and deliberate. "Ethan, you said it yourself. I didn't name anyone. But if the shoe fits." A ripple of chuckles broke out around the table. Not loud, not cruel, but enough. Enough to brand me. I looked at her. My wife. The woman who once swore I was her anchor. I searched her face for a flicker of defense, some trace of the loyalty I had given her so freely. She met my gaze, and looked away. Then, with the poise of a queen addressing her court, she said, "He's right, Ethan. Sometimes you let your emotions get the better of you. It reflects badly, not just on you, but on me. On us." The words hit harder than any slap. Public. Deliberate. The rival leaned back, watching my reaction, amusement dancing in his eyes. He didn't need to say anything else. She had done the work for him. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I was the villain in their story now, the insecure husband who couldn't handle his wife's power, the liability dragging her down. Everything they whispered in the shadows, she had just made gospel truth. I stood abruptly, the chair screeching against the polished floor. "Excuse me," I muttered, though it sounded more like a growl. No one stopped me. No one asked if I was all right. The conversation resumed as though I'd never been there at all. I stumbled out into the hallway, the walls pressing in on me. My chest ached with the weight of it, years of loyalty twisted into humiliation in front of strangers. Dead weight. Insecure. Liability. The words echoed, piling on top of each other until they drowned everything else. My phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, assuming it was David sending another sympathy message. But when I pulled it from my pocket, the screen made me freeze. An unknown number. Just one line. "You don't know the whole story." I stared at the words, pulse hammering in my ears. Was this another game? Another dagger meant to twist deeper. Or was there actually something behind all of this I hadn't seen yet? I typed a reply with shaking hands. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Then vanished. Silence. The city never truly slept, but that night, the silence inside my apartment felt like a coffin. I sat in the dark, phone face up on the table, replaying the anonymous message again and again. You don't know the whole story. The words looped like a haunting refrain. Every time I thought about replying, I froze. Whoever had sent it wanted me dangling, second-guessing everything. And it was working. The humiliation at the boardroom still burned through me like acid. Her voice, "It reflects badly on us," echoed until my hands curled into fists. I had been erased. Dismissed. And worst of all, betrayed not just in whispers, but in daylight. The phone lit up. Her name. For a heartbeat, I almost let it ring out. But some part of me, the part still starving for answers, for closure, maybe even for the ghost of the woman I once loved, pressed accept. Ethan, she breathed. Soft. Too soft. Like she was stepping back into the role of lover instead of executioner. My chest tightened. What do you want? She sighed, a sound carefully crafted to tug at something inside me. Don't sound so cold. I called because I don't like where we are. This, distance. It's not what I want. I almost laughed. Not what she wanted. Did she think I'd forgotten the boardroom? The chat? The gala? You don't like where we are. I said slowly. You made where we are. You called me dead weight. You humiliated me in front of your entire board. Her pause was brief but deliberate. Then her voice softened again, honey dripping over a knife. I was angry, Ethan. Stressed. You know how much pressure I'm under. Sometimes I say things I don't mean. But you've always been my safe place. The person I can be unfiltered with. Safe place. Unfiltered. My stomach turned. What she called safe was what I called disposable. Look, she continued, her tone carefully balanced between vulnerability and command, I know things have gotten messy. People talk. Rumors spread. But we don't have to let this spiral. We can fix it. Together. Her words sounded like reconciliation, but her rhythm betrayed her. Every sentence curved back toward the same core, her stress. Her image. Her need to fix the perception of us for the world to see. Not once did she say she missed me. Not once did she ask how I felt. What exactly do you mean by fix it? I asked. She pounced on the question like a hawk spotting prey. Appearances, Ethan. We show them we're united. We put on the front that nothing's wrong. You come with me to the next gala, you stand by my side, and they'll forget this nonsense. That way, no one can use it against us. There it was. Not love. No regret. Strategy. My throat tightened. So that's it. You want me for optics. She hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but I caught it. Don't twist this. You're my husband. You're part of this. We're stronger when we stand together. I let silence answer her. On her end, I could hear the faint clinking of glass, background chatter muffled by walls. The sound of a dinner, a party, a gathering. She wasn't alone. Her voice dropped lower. I need you, Ethan. I still need you. For a split second, I almost let those words crack me. Almost. Until it hit me, she didn't need me. She needed what I represented. Stability. Legitimacy. The convenient illusion of a marriage to balance her ruthless shine. My hand tightened around the phone. No, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. You don't need me. You need control. And I'm done giving it to you. Her inhale was sharp, audible even across the line. Don't be foolish. You think you can survive without me? You wouldn't have. And then, faint but clear, it slipped through. A laugh. Low, male, unmistakable. Every nerve in my body went rigid. Who's with you? I demanded. Silence. For the first time, her perfect tone cracked. But I didn't need her answer. I already knew. The first thing I noticed was the vibration. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the nightstand, one notification after another, a constant, unbroken rhythm. I groaned, dragging myself upright. Sunlight cut through the blinds in sharp streaks, but the glow from my screen was blinding in its own right. Dozens of tags, mentions, messages. My stomach sank before I even opened the first one. And then I saw it. A photo. No, 100 reposts of the same photo. Her. My wife. And him. The caption read something innocuous. Business trip in Monaco, the power duo strikes again. But the photo didn't need words. It said everything. She was leaning into him, her hand brushing his arm, his head tilted just close enough to whisper something only she could hear. Both of them were smiling. Both of them glowing with that untouchable energy of success and conspiracy. And in the corner of the frame, a wineglass in her hand. Not coffee. Not water. Not professionalism. Intimacy, masquerading as business. I scrolled through the comments. Finally, she found her real equal. Poor Ethan, left behind as always. He was just a placeholder. We all knew it. Some even laughed at me directly, tagging my handle. Bro didn't even see it coming. Dead weight can't fly when she's already in the stratosphere. Each word carved deeper into my chest. It wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was public execution. She hadn't even bothered to hide it. No careful discretion, no private whispers in closed rooms. She had let the world see. She had let them choose her side, and they had. And me? I was the punchline. I put the phone down, pressing both hands against my face. The night before replayed in my head, her voice on the call, soft, deceptive. I need you. And behind it, his laugh. The truth had been in my ears already. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. But this photo, this story, erased all doubt. She had chosen him. She had chosen ambition. She had chosen control, optics, and empire. And in the process, she had thrown me into the fire for everyone to watch burn. I stood up, pacing the apartment like a caged animal. Every memory of her twisted now into mockery. Our wedding vows. Our nights planning futures. Her promises whispered in the dark when we were younger, hungrier, desperate together. All lies. Or maybe not lies, maybe just temporary truths that expired the moment something shinier came along. I stopped in front of the mirror. For a long time, I stared at my own reflection. Hollow eyes, jaw tight, shoulders slumped under the invisible weight of her shadow. That was how the world saw me. That was the man they mocked online. The man who had become nothing more than her husband. But I wasn't going to be that anymore. Not for her. Not for anyone. I picked up the phone again, but this time, I didn't scroll. I didn't search her name. Instead, I opened my notes app and typed one line. It's over. I won't be her shadow. My dream, my own dream, had been buried for too long beneath hers. Music. The piano. The only thing that ever gave me fire before her empire swallowed me whole. I could still feel the keys under my fingers, the sound that once kept me alive. I would dig myself out. I would breathe again. And I would break free, no matter how much it cost. The phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't another tag or cruel comment. It was David. At first, I thought it was just another check-in. A simple, "You okay, man," message. But when I opened it, my breath caught. Not words. Screenshots. Dozens of them. And as I tapped through, one after another, I felt my blood run cold. This wasn't just a betrayal of love. This was a plan. A calculated, deliberate plot. Freedom doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence. The kind of silence that settles after you've burned something down. I woke to the dull light of morning, David's screenshot still open on my phone. Plans. Messages. Emails. All threaded together into one ugly truth. My wife and the rival weren't just betraying me in love. They were aligning to erase me from the company entirely, convincing the board I was unstable, ineffective, a liability to her empire. It wasn't just about ambition. It was annihilation. For hours I stared at those messages, my pulse heavy, my body numb. And then, slowly, something hardened inside me. If they wanted me erased, I'd choose my own exit. On my own terms. The first cut was the photos. I opened my gallery, years of us. Vacations, anniversary dinners, blurred selfies of laughter and promises. I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. My thumb moved with mechanical precision, selecting, deleting, erasing. Every chat with her went next. Folders of old voice notes, late-night confessions, even her apologies that once felt so sincere. Delete. Gone. The ghost of her voice finally silenced. The act didn't heal me, but it cleared the fog. It made space. Space for something that wasn't her. By afternoon, I was packing. The penthouse, with its glass walls and sterile perfection, had never really been mine. It was hers, her vision, her taste, her trophies displayed like declarations. Now, I folded my clothes into bags, stripping my presence from the place. The sound of drawers closing, zippers fastening, filled the silence. With each packed bag, I felt lighter. The piano, my piano, sat in the corner. Dust on the keys, neglected, waiting. I dragged the cover off and pressed one note. The sound rang out, imperfect but alive. My chest tightened. That sound belonged to me. It always had. I was carrying the last box toward the door when the click of heels echoed in the hall. She was home. My wife, no, my ex-wife in everything but paperwork, stepped in, immaculate as ever, her expression unreadable at first. Her eyes flicked over the suitcases, the cleared shelves. "So," she said coolly, setting her bag down. "You're leaving." I tightened my grip on the box. "I am." Her lips curved in something between a smile and a sneer. "And where do you think you'll go, Ethan? Without me, you're—" "Don't say it," I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. "Don't you dare call me nothing again." For a moment, the mask slipped. Her eyes flashed with something raw, irritation, maybe even fear, before she smoothed it over. "You're being dramatic," she said softly, too softly. I was angry. People say things. "No," I said. "You meant it. Every word. And I believed you for too long. But not anymore." Her expression hardened. "Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? The life I built for us. The life you built for yourself," I snapped. "I was just the prop. The background piece. I gave up my dream so you could shine. And when you didn't need me anymore, you made sure everyone knew I was dead weight." The silence between us was heavy, sharper than any shout. "Finally," she said, "you're making a mistake." "Maybe," I admitted, stepping past her with my box. "But at least it'll be mine." Walking out of that penthouse felt like walking out of a cage. The air outside hit my lungs differently, cleaner, sharper. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from the terrifying clarity of freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't orbiting her. I wasn't defined by her. I was just, me. The sound of footsteps followed. Not hers. Heavier. Slower. I turned the corner, and there he was. The rival. Leaning against a pillar, as though he'd been waiting for me. "Big move," he said, his voice casual but eyes sharp. "Cutting ties. Walking away." I kept walking, refusing to engage. But he stepped into my path, his smile turning razor-thin. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel his breath. "You'll regret crossing me. New cities don't greet you with open arms. They test you." The first night in my new apartment, I slept on a mattress still wrapped in plastic, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and the hum of traffic outside. No glass walls. No penthouse view. Just peeling paint, a stubborn window that refused to close properly, and silence. And yet, it felt more mine than any place I had shared with her. For the first time in years, I wasn't suffocating under the weight of someone else's dream. I rented a small office 2 blocks away. Nothing impressive, 4 white walls, a creaky desk, and 1 flickering light bulb. But it was an empty canvas, not a throne room. I set down my laptop, a stack of blank notebooks, and a coffee mug. That was it. That was the foundation of my rebuild. The first thing I did wasn't write emails, or call investors, or chase the past. I uncovered the piano I had dragged here like a lifeline. Its black surface was scratched from the move, but the keys still gleamed when I lifted the lid. My hands hovered above them for a long time. Then, I played. The sound wasn't perfect. Some notes cracked. My fingers stumbled. But it was real. Each key pressed was mine, not hers, not the company's, not anyone else's. The music filled the room, raw and uneven, but alive. And in that imperfect song, I remembered, I wasn't nothing. I was more than what she had reduced me to. Days slipped into weeks. I built small routines. Morning coffee from the corner cafe where the barista began to remember my order. I walked by the river when my head felt too heavy. Long nights sketching out plans for something new, not a mirror of her empire, but a venture of my own, built around passion instead of power. Every brick I laid in this quiet life made me stronger. But ghosts still haunted me. I would scroll past her posts online, pretending I wasn't looking. The perfect CEO smile, the polished captions about leadership, the photographs staged to scream invincibility. At first, it burned. Then, I noticed something new. The comments weren't all praise anymore. Whispers started. Why was she absent at the last board meeting? Didn't their quarterly numbers dip? She looks tired, doesn't she? Cracks in the porcelain. Her empire, once untouchable, showed hairline fractures. I should have felt pity. Instead, I felt something sharper, darker. Satisfaction. For once, the cracks weren't in me. One night, after a late practice session at the piano, I sat in the dark of my office, scrolling through headlines. Another glossy article about her. Another photo op with investors. But her eyes, I knew those eyes. The gleam was forced. I closed my phone, leaned back in my chair, and exhaled. Finally, I thought. Finally, she's slipping. That was when the vibration buzzed against my palm. A new message. I unlocked the screen and froze. It was from her. A single line. Please. I need to see you. The cafe was too ordinary for what I expected. She had picked it, not me. A quiet corner spot on the edge of downtown, far from the glass towers and marble floors where she thrived. Maybe she thought neutrality would disarm me. Maybe she thought this place, with its chipped wooden tables and soft indie music, would feel safe. It didn't. Nothing about seeing her again could ever feel safe. I arrived early, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to set the tone. I wanted her to walk in and see me already there, settled, calm, unmoved. When she entered, heads turned. They always did. White coat draped across her shoulders like a queen's cape, heels clicking in rhythmic authority. But for the first time, I noticed how carefully that mask was painted. The slight delay before her smile, the tension in her posture, the shadows under her eyes. She slid into the seat across from me, her perfume wafting across the table, familiar and foreign all at once. Ethan, she breathed, as if saying my name might break her. I folded my hands, waiting. I wasn't sure you'd come, she continued, her voice dipped in honey. But, thank you. Really. I've been drowning without you. I almost laughed. Drowning. She had tossed me into the deep end months ago, watching me sink while she swam laps with him. Instead, I said nothing. She leaned forward, searching my face. You've changed. I had to, I replied simply. Her lips pressed together. Do you hate me that much? I tilted my head, letting the silence stretch until she shifted in her chair. That was when I saw it, her discomfort. My lack of reaction cut deeper than my rage ever had. She tried again, this time softer. I miss us, Ethan. The way we dreamed together. The way you believed in me when no one else did. I want that back. I let the words wash over me. She was reaching, yes, but not for me, for control. For the version of me who worshipped her, who shielded her when the world doubted. But that man was gone. You don't miss me, I said finally. My voice was steady, low. You miss what I gave you. The faintest flinch broke through her mask. For once, she didn't have a line ready. That was when the door opened, and he walked in. The rival, polished as ever, suit sharp, grin sharper. He spotted us instantly, his steps purposeful, predatory. Ah, he said, sliding into the seat beside her without asking. The reunion. How touching. Her shoulders stiffened, but she didn't stop him. She didn't tell him to leave. That told me everything. I leaned back, refusing to be rattled. Couldn't let her meet me alone, huh? He smirked. I'm not here to protect her. I'm here to protect you from yourself. The tension was a live wire. She tried to smooth it over, murmuring something about civility, about not making a scene. But neither of us was listening. The rival leaned closer, his eyes burning with amusement. You're walking around like you've risen from the ashes. Like you've built something new, something untouchable. I didn't blink. That's cute, he continued, lowering his voice so only I could hear. But tell me, Ethan, how will your little reinvention survive, if the world learns what I know? A chill slid down my spine. What do you mean? I asked, my tone calm but my pulse roaring in my ears. His grin widened, his breath hot against my ear. I mean, he whispered, I can destroy you before you even begin. The rival's words clung to me like smoke long after he left the cafe. I can destroy you before you even begin. But as I sat there, staring across the table, I realized he wasn't the one unraveling. She was. Her hands trembled as she reached for her glass, her perfect manicure unable to mask the slight shake. The confidence she carried like a second skin was cracking, splintering before my eyes. For years, she had stood above everyone else, immaculate, untouchable. Now, the queen looked, cornered. 2 nights later, she called again. Not with the velvet tone of reconciliation this time, but sharp, almost frantic. Ethan, I need to see you. Privately. Please. I could have ignored it. I should have. But something in her voice, desperation, the kind that doesn't fake well, pulled me back in. We met in her office this time. The skyline glimmered behind her, but it wasn't the symbol of triumph it once was. It felt like a cage. She didn't even wait for me to sit. "It's all falling apart," she blurted, pacing the room. "The board's restless. Numbers are slipping. They're whispering about bringing in outside oversight. Do you know what that means? Do you know what they'll do to me if they smell blood?" Her voice cracked at the end. The sound startled me. "Is that why you called me?" I asked. My tone was level, a stone against her storm. She stopped pacing, whipping toward me. "Don't you dare. Don't you stand there like you're above this." I didn't move. "I'm not standing above. I'm just not kneeling anymore." Her nostrils flared. For a moment, anger blazed in her eyes. Then, just as quickly, it flickered out, leaving something hollow. She collapsed into her chair, burying her face in her hands. "I've given everything to this company. Everything. And now it's slipping away. Do you have any idea what it's like to build an empire from scratch, only to watch it rot while people wait for you to fall?" Her voice was muffled, shaking. A part of me wanted to reach across the desk. To remind her she wasn't alone, that I had once carried part of that weight with her. But another part of me, the newer part, the one forged in her absence, knew better. "You built it," I said quietly. "And you broke it. All on your terms." She lifted her head, mascara smudged at the corners of her eyes. Vulnerability etched lines I had never seen before. "You think I don't know that?" she hissed. "You think I don't see what I've done? But without me, without this, I'm nothing. Do you understand? Nothing." The word hit me like a slap. Nothing. The very word she had once flung at me. I stared at her. She didn't even realize. Silence thickened. Then, the cracks widened further. Her voice dropped, softer, breaking. "I can't lose this, Ethan. I can't lose who I am. The world doesn't forgive women who fall. They trample them. They laugh." Her hands tightened into fists. "I thought if I pushed hard enough, if I demanded enough, I could stay untouchable." Her shoulders shook. "But I'm slipping. And I don't know how to stop it." She looked at me then, raw, stripped of all the masks. For the first time, I saw her not as my wife, not as the CEO, not as the rival's shield, but as a person drowning in the very empire she'd built. I should have felt pity. I should have softened. But something in her words still poisoned the air. She wasn't asking for me. She was asking for rescue. Rescue without respect. I leaned forward, my voice steady. "You don't need me. You need control. And that's the one thing you'll never get from me again." Her lip trembled. Her eyes shimmered. And then, like glass finally shattering, she broke. Her voice was a whisper, barely audible, yet heavier than anything she had ever said to me. "But I never stopped needing you." The silence after her words, "but I never stopped needing you," was the loudest thing I had ever heard. In that silence, I felt the weight of years, of dreams shared, promises made, and betrayals stacked one on top of the other until the foundation collapsed. I should have been moved. Maybe once, those words would have broken me. But now, they sounded like chains, polished, shining chains trying to drag me back into the pit I'd just crawled out of. I breathed in, slow, steady, and said the one thing she never expected. "You may need me, Celeste. But I don't need you." The days that followed were a storm, but for the first time, it wasn't mine to weather. The divorce papers were signed in a sterile lawyer's office, ink smearing under my grip as though my hand wanted to crush the pen. She sat across from me, face blank, only her eyes betraying the fire and fury burning inside. "You think you can just walk away?" she asked softly, dangerously. I met her gaze. "No. I know I can." Her laugh was hollow, brittle. "You'll regret this." I slid the signed papers toward her, the sound of paper on glass like a blade. "Maybe. But at least it'll be my regret. I didn't just leave her. I left the company too. The empire I had once believed was ours, that dream of building something side by side, had already been poisoned. Staying would mean living as her shadow, her pawn, her justification. Walking away wasn't just divorce. It was freedom. My resignation email was short, almost clinical. No long explanations. No bitter manifesto. Just one line that said everything. Effective immediately, I will no longer be part of this company. I wish the board well. When I hit send, it felt like cutting the last chain. My chest hurt, but it was the good kind of hurt. Like tearing scar tissue to finally breathe again. Celeste didn't fade overnight. She tried to project strength at first. The perfect CEO, untouchable, poised. But I watched the mask crack. Share prices dipped. Board members whispered. The rival, Lucas, appeared less like her right hand and more like her handler. And the internet noticed. Photos surfaced of her leaving a boardroom meeting with makeup streaked, of Lucas standing a step ahead of her instead of behind. Headlines shifted tone. Ice Queen showing strain. Power couple, or puppet strings. For a woman who lived on image, that was the beginning of the end. I should have felt vindicated. Maybe part of me did. But mostly, I felt lighter. Every tie cut, every chain broken, I started to hear myself again. The quiet hum of my own dream returning. Not hers. Not ours. Mine. For once, I wasn't living as her shadow. Then the whispers began. It started as a rumor, drifting through industry circles, then swelling into the news feeds. Sources say Celeste isn't finished. That she has one last play. One last plan. One message from David landed in my inbox late at night. She's not letting go, Ethan. She's planning something big. For you. I stared at the screen, heart thudding. Just when I thought the war was over, I realized the Queen wasn't retreating. She was regrouping. And this time, she was aiming straight for me. Freedom wasn't fireworks. It wasn't loud or cinematic. It was quiet. The quiet of waking up without dread. The quiet of walking into a new office with Anna by my side, her calm presence grounding me. She wasn't like Celeste, no glittering facades, no sharp edges pretending to be strength. Anna was real. Measured. She believed in people, not just power. With her guidance, I found my rhythm again. Meetings where my voice mattered. Projects that weren't about prestige but impact. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's accessory. I was myself. And in her eyes, I wasn't dead weight. It was enough. Weeks turned to months. My name stopped appearing in articles tied to Celeste. Instead, it started appearing in features about me. Former CEO partner building independent success story. Ethan Cole's new venture challenges old power. I'd thought I would always live in her shadow. But slowly, that shadow evaporated. Until the night she returned. It was at a gala, ironic, given how many nights like this had once left me humiliated. But this one was different. This time, I walked in with my head high, Anna beside me, laughter easy in my chest. Then the room went silent. Celeste stood at the entrance. Not the polished, icy woman I remembered. Her makeup streaked, her dress wrinkled, her composure cracked. She looked at me, just me, as though the rest of the room didn't exist. And then, in front of hundreds of people, she dropped to her knees. Ethan. Her voice was raw, desperate. Please. Don't walk away from me. The crowd gasped. Phones lifted. The unshakable CEO, the woman who had once called me nothing, was sobbing at my feet. Tears streaked her face, her hands clutching at my sleeve like I was her last anchor. I was wrong. I was selfish. I thought I was strong without you, but I'm not. I need you. Please, please, just come back. Her words echoed, the same refrain as before, I need you. Once, those words would have shattered me, would have pulled me back into her orbit. But now, all I felt was clarity. I looked at her, at the broken remnants of the woman who had humiliated me, betrayed me, discarded me like ash, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel powerless. I felt free. Anna didn't move. She didn't need to. Her steady presence at my side said everything. I wasn't alone. Not anymore. The room held its breath. Everyone waited to see if I would forgive her. If I would bend, fold, kneel beside her. But I didn't. I bent just enough so only she could hear me. My voice was calm, cold, final. You said I was nothing, Celeste. Remember? Well, nothing comes back. Her eyes widened, the words cutting sharper than any blade. Her hands slipped from my sleeve, her body collapsing fully onto the marble floor. And I walked away. The strangest thing about freedom is how familiar it feels once it settles in. I used to think I'd always carry her voice in my head, Celeste's cutting words, her dismissive glances, the way she made me feel like a ghost in my own life. For a while, I did. But somewhere along the way, those echoes lost their grip. Now, when I hear my name in a boardroom or see it printed in headlines, it doesn't come with hers attached. It's mine. Ethan Cole. Not Celeste's husband. Not the forgotten partner. Just me. Looking back, I see the marriage for what it truly was, not destiny, not disaster, but a crucible. It burned away the illusions. It scorched me raw, left me standing in ashes. But it also forced me to face who I was without her. It made me choose, stay broken, or rebuild. And I rebuilt it. The company I've built since leaving her shadow doesn't shine because of glittering galas or curated social media reels. It shines because of the people who believe in it, because of the nights of hard work, because of the vision I refused to abandon even when she called me nothing. That vision was always mine. The stars, my motif, my anchor. I used to stare at them when I felt trapped, tiny glimmers that reminded me there was more out there. Tonight, I see them again, clearer than ever. Endless, waiting, pulling me forward. Celeste. Her empire cracked, then fractured. The woman who once commanded boardrooms now appears in whispers, not headlines. She's still out there, I know, her shadow flickers at the edges of conversations, in rumors, in the pitiful remnants of her public image. But shadows don't scare me anymore. I don't chase them, and I don't fight them. I let them fade. She wanted me on my knees, begging for her approval. Now, she's the one left kneeling in memories I refuse to carry. Anna sits across from me in our new office, sunlight spilling across the desk as she sketches out plans for what comes next. There's no chain tying me here, just choice. Just growth. And in her presence, I've found something Celeste never gave me, respect. The scars remain, yes. They always will. But scars aren't just reminders of pain. They're proof of survival. Proof of strength. When I step outside that night, the air is crisp, the sky alive with stars. I close my eyes, breathe deep, and for the first time, I don't feel haunted. I feel whole. My past may linger, but it no longer defines me. My legacy isn't a story of betrayal. It isn't even a story of love lost. It's a story of becoming. Celeste once said I was nothing. But nothing became everything. And I walk toward that horizon unshaken, my dreams still blazing, the stars brighter than ever.